Hey guys, hope you're all well. We've got a very quiet chat tonight. I'm wondering whether there's like other lives going on at the same time, which is fine. I just didn't check because this was a little bit impromptu. So I was going to do a live tomorrow after the trial, but I was just kind of contemplating things. And I thought, no, I'm going to hop on tonight. And, we've got a day off court today. So I thought, no, I'll hop on tonight instead. And we can have a chat about Leticia's diagnosis. So she says she's got DID, dissociative identity disorder. And we're yet to hear from Dr. Dorothy Lewis, who I believe is the person who diagnosed her. And Dr. Lewis is a little bit of a controversial figure herself, but we're going to hear from her early next week. Perhaps, not sure whether they said Monday or Tuesday. It was right at the end of yesterday. But yeah, early next week, we're going to hear from Dr. Lewis. But the doctors that have spoken so far, so the psychologists that have spoken so far, have both agreed that they don't believe she's got DID. Excuse me. They don't believe she's got DID. So we're going to talk about that. I don't believe she's got DID. I've said all along, I don't believe she's got DID. And in the live I did 2 nights ago now, straight after the trial, I said I think she's got a personality disorder. She's narcissistic. She's got narcissistic personality disorder, but she's got some traits of borderline personality disorder as well. And lo and behold, both of the doctors that came to the stand for the prosecution, Dr. Torres and the other one, the Scottish one, I think her name's Dr. Grimmich or something along those lines. I really liked her. I thought she was very good. But they both said that their diagnosis would be that of a personality disorder, narcissistic and borderline features. So we all agree, which is great. I love it. I love it when people agree with me. Who's Emily? Member for 18 months. Thank you, Emily. Thanks for sharing your expertise. I do try. But yeah, so I thought we'll have a chat, and we'll have a chat about DID very, very briefly, because I've talked about DID in previous live streams, but I particularly want to talk about narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, go through the symptoms of each, and I think you'll possibly agree with me and both of the doctors that have spoken so far that those diagnoses fit Leticia a lot better. Now, the problem with psychological diagnosing is that there's a lot of overlap between these disorders, that you can probably pick up the DSM-5, and it's a huge book, but if you fancy picking up the DSM-5 and flicking through, and you could probably think, I've got that, I do that. And what you've got to remember is that we're all a little bit crazy. We all have our idiosyncrasies. We all do strange things at times. The difference between somebody with a diagnosable and a condition that we'd call a mental illness is that it's disruptive and it creates some dysfunction. Now, that doesn't mean to say that everybody with mental illness is dysfunctional, because 1 in 5 people, 1 in 5 in the Western world of people will have a diagnosable mental illness at some point in their lives. The most common are anxiety disorders and depressive disorders, followed probably by bipolar. I think the numbers are 1 in 8 worldwide, but it's 1 in 5 in the US and in the UK. I think it's only 1 in 8 across the world because there's many countries where mental ill health just is ignored or stigmatized or just not diagnosable, right? So we've got to remember that. But we've also got to remember, when we're talking about mental ill health in relation to legal matters, in relation to pleading not guilty by reason of insanity, we've also got to remember that the legal definition of insanity is not in the DSM, not in the DSM-5 or any other diagnostic manual that is in the current, in the world, anywhere. The definition of legal insanity is one where you are so detached from reality that you don't understand right from wrong, either because you're psychotic or you've got severe dementia or you've got a severe brain injury or something else, right, that creates such a profound disability that you cannot understand what you're doing is wrong. You can't follow simple instructions. You don't understand what you might be doing is hurting someone or murdering someone, right? And I think probably by this point, if you've been following the trial, or even if you've only been following the trial loosely and you only loosely know the case, I think you can probably agree that Leticia is not legally insane, however much she tries to portray herself as such. And even if, and I've said this time and time and time again, even if her diagnosis or her mental instability, because she is unstable, she's got some kind of mental problem, condition going on, she does. Even if she had DID, which personally I don't believe she has, but even if she did, it wouldn't mean that she'd get an automatic pass into legal insanity. The vast majority of people who have DID or who have narcissistic personality disorder or borderline personality disorder cannot class themselves as legally insane, because they do understand right from wrong. They're not so detached from reality, even if they're in a state of altered consciousness and another personality is in the driving seat. It's not legal insanity. She's a malingerer, Amanda. She is. She is. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I've launched into that, but I am going to say a few hellos, just to see who's in. We've got a few more people in now. It's still a quiet chat though. Shirley says, definitely narcissistic. Wondering if you believe she has both feet in the dark triad. I think if we looked at Leticia's behavior in relation to the dark triad, which is a combination of narcissism, Machiavellianism, which is wanting power and control, and psychopathy, and measuring high on all three of those. And I did a live stream on the dark triad I think that was in relation to Brian Kohlberg. I've also got a video on the dark triad I did quite recently, so go and check that out if you've not seen it. I think she'd probably measure highly. I think her main scores will come from narcissism though. But yeah, I think if she did a dark triad test, I think she would measure high. Yeah. Take it easy. Hello. I want what we I can never pronounce your name, but hello. Jack, only Grands, Angela, Lisa, Amy, Petunia, Sharon, Claire, Marina, Carmel, Emily. Hello. Just saw you alive. Just finished watching Crazy But Not Insane, literally. Oh, that's Dr. Lewis, isn't it? I can't watch it. It's on HBO, and we don't have HBO in the UK. I can get it on Amazon Prime, but when I click on it, it says your country can't allow it. What I might try to do, I don't know whether it'll let me, but I might try and go on to Amazon when my VPN's on and see if it'll let me see it then. Otherwise, I can't see it. What else have we got? Cinder, I think that says, from Luxembourg. Wow. Yeah. She's insane when things don't go her way. That's true. That's true. Emily, thank you for the $10. It's thought-provoking. You can rent it on YouTube. Really? Oh, well. Brilliant. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for the $10, but I shall go and hunt that down. I didn't know it was on YouTube. I probably didn't even go and check. I'm on YouTube all the time and didn't even bother to go and check. Oh dear. Jim, hello, aka Womble. Magical Mother. Who else have we got? Amanda. Claire, I think I've said you. True Crime Utah. Hello. Samantha, hello. Yeah, we've got a few people coming in now. Amanda Page. That's exactly what both experts said too. Yeah, boom. Anyway, right. Okay, so gonna just very quickly skip through DID first. Thank you, Cinder. I don't even know whether I'm pronouncing your name right, but thank you for the €5.99. That's very kind of you. So we're going to skip through DID first, and then we're going to look at narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and I'm going to play you a clip. The most hilarious. I was laughing my socks off. It was part of the video that was shown when Dr. Torres was on the stand, and Leticia was talking about she was able to create worlds, and oh dear, I was laughing my head off, honestly, laughing my head off. So I'm going to play that, just simply because, I mean, look, I find it really disconcerting and very, very distasteful that she's claiming to be insane using a condition that is using a condition like DID, which is not very well understood. Even amongst the psychological community, it's not very well understood. And it's just plain wrong to claim to be insane when you can't take responsibility for murdering a child, when you can't take responsibility and therefore let's just pretend to be mentally ill, right? It's horrible. I hope there's no backlash. I don't know whether the case is high profile enough for it to create a severe amount of backlash for actual people with DID. But I hope that doesn't happen, because DID is not like Leticia is portraying. It really isn't. Who've we got? Jessie, member for 3 months. Thank you so much. And Jessie for the $4.99 in my own currency. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It's shameful. It absolutely is shameful. It really is. It really is. Okay, let's start with what is dissociative identity disorder. So what causes it? It's usually created in childhood. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get diagnosed in childhood. It doesn't even mean that the symptoms are massively apparent in childhood. But it tends to develop from a child being severely traumatized. Now, that could be sexual abuse, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be any form of trauma that is significant enough that a child has to escape from that pain, but they can't physically escape because they're a child. And if it's an abuse situation, then they've got absolutely nowhere to turn. So it's almost, it like begins like zoning out. Like you can't physically take yourself away from that trauma, so you psychologically detach from it. And because the childhood brain is very malleable and the personality's only just developing, it can create what is essentially a split mind, that the personality that the child is developing, a new personality or a different personality takes over when that trauma is happening. And it's still rare. Now, just think, like, child abuse is common, sadly. Child abuse is common. Physical abuse more so than sexual abuse. And the vast majority of people who have been abused as children don't develop DID. So there's probably some kind of susceptibility to being able to dissociate in such a way, in such an extreme way, because we all dissociate. We can all dissociate. Like if you zone out and then, you have to you change concentration in some way, like you change your consciousness in some way. We all have the ability to dissociate, but very few people have the ability to dissociate to the point where they would be diagnosable with a dissociative disorder. Phoenix gifted 10 memberships. Thank you so much, Phoenix. Who got these memberships? Trina, Claire, Marissa, Susan. Oh, just jumped. Phenomenal. I want to. It's you. I want to. I'm just going to call you I want to. Cassie, Samantha, Teddy, and Explore someone. Explore. Thank you, Phoenix, and welcome to you guys. There's some members' lives, there's some small videos, there's some status updates, and obviously you can use the custom emojis as well as a member. So welcome. So there's possibly some kind of, I don't know, a genetic component or something that makes some people very susceptible to extreme forms of dissociation. But we can all dissociate. If you think about daydreaming, I mean, daydreaming isn't quite dissociation, but it kind of is in a very mild way. That if you're daydreaming and, you've just completely zoned out because you're bored, or you are doing something monotonous, Like if you have a really monotonous job and you've just got that ability to zone out, and your perception can change. We've all done this, right? Like somebody might be talking to you and you don't hear them because you're literally in a world of your own. That's an altered state of consciousness, and that is a mild form of dissociation. So we can all dissociate. It's an adaptive strategy. It helps us cope with things like monotony, boredom, and in extreme forms, it helps us cope with pain. It helps us cope with abuse. So that's what causes DID. Now, not everybody develops DID from childhood trauma. It can be developed in adulthood, but it's rare, very rare, for it to develop in adulthood. I think probably there have been cases of veterans who've returned from war who have developed dissociative disorders, and some of those cases would be classed as DID. So, yeah, but it's a trauma disorder. So what are the signs and symptoms? A person with DID has 2 or more distinct identities. The core identity is the person's usual personality, and it's usually called the host. And then alters or alternate personalities are the ones that have been created through that traumatic experience. Some people just develop one. Some people develop several. There are cases that you can look up on YouTube where people have got like 2,000 personalities. And I'm always quite a bit skeptical about people who claim to have 2,000 different personalities. I mean, how can you even possibly count them all? I mean, how can they be distinct identities? I don't know. And they do tend to be very different from each other, right? Because they're created through trauma. They're a coping mechanism. They're not a conscious choice. They're not developed because you don't like your name. They're not developed because you want to create a fantasy world. They're not developed because when you daydream, you're someone else. No. Contrary to what Leticia thinks, that's not what DID is. It's not a conscious choice, right? And it's also not taking on a role. Mr. Tillington made me laugh. He's one of Leticia's defenders. And he was like saying, oh, well, we all take on roles, and we do, and he was saying, when I take on my lawyer role, and I put my shirt and my tie on and I come into court, and I'm a lawyer role, and I'm very different in my lawyer role than I am when I'm playing with my kids. And Dr. and I can't think of her name. I think it's Dr. Grimmett. She was like, yeah, but that's not DID. It's like, no, I know, but it's kind of like that. It's like, no, it isn't. It isn't like that. That's a conscious choice. That's a learned behavior. A learned behavior of putting on your shirt and tie, going into work, going into court, and defending a law life like Leticia is a conscious choice. You don't have to do that job. Right, he obviously enjoys it. Well, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he'll take a different job after this, but it's a conscious choice, and it's a learned pattern of behaviors. You're learning what's acceptable in that circumstance. That's not DID, right? So it's very different from taking on a role and wanting to act out an imaginary person. If that was what DID was, every actor or actress would be diagnosable with DID because they're taking on a role. They're pretending to be someone else for the purposes of a TV show or a movie. So, yeah, anyway. But so the main one is having one or more other identities. That's the main symptom. But what tends to be the first noticeable symptoms are things like losing time or waking up, basically literally waking up somewhere else that you don't remember going. Those are the kind of things that make people around you notice. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of these symptoms that I'm going to talk about now are always there with people with DID. But these commonly go along with DID. And anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol abuse, they're conditions in their own right. So we'd call them comorbid disorders. So disorders that you have along with DID. So Leticia has been diagnosed with anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, and I could see that. Actually, I could see that she probably does have anxiety. Delusions. So being delusional isn't it's not people with DID don't necessarily have delusions, but some do. Some believe things some believe things to be happening that are not really happening, but it's not the same as psychosis. And there are many other disorders that include delusions as well. Depression. Now, anxiety and depression with DID, well, you might get depressed and you might be anxious having DID because it's a scary thing to have no voluntary control over somebody else taking over your brain and your body. That's scary. It's not creating another world that you can just nip into when you want to, like Leticia thinks. It's scary. You feel anxious that you're gonna put yourself at risk. And part of the treatment for DID, now there's no cure for DID, but part of the treatment is learning how to cope with your dissociation and having strategies in place through your daily life where you can attempt to keep yourself safe. So it doesn't sound at all like what Leticia was experiencing based on what we've heard so far in the trial. Disorientation is obvious that if you're going through periods of dissociation, then you're going to be disoriented. You're not going to know which way is up. If you're having frequent switches, now, not everybody who's got DID switches frequently. Some people only switch occasionally with certain triggers, like if they're stressed or they're confronted, they might switch. But if they stay calm and they practice their coping strategies and they have a calm life, their brain might not have any need to switch. So switching can be infrequent, and in those people, they can have a functional life. Drug and alcohol abuse, if you're anxious, you're depressed, you're struggling, then you might choose alcohol or drugs to cope, which is completely the wrong thing to do because that alters your brain chemistry anyway. Memory loss is massive. Memory loss is I don't know why memory loss is right at the end of this list, because memory loss is one of the main symptoms that when your alternate personality takes over, then you might lose time, you might lose memory of what you've done. And then if you're really struggling, then suicidal thoughts or self-harm. Some people with DID unfortunately do take their own lives if they can't get it under control, if they feel just totally out of it and they're so very depressed. But as I said, anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol abuse, memory loss, and also suicidal thoughts or self-harm, they can be disorders in their own right, or they can be comorbid with other disorders. So just because you've got one or two of these doesn't mean to say you've got DID. All right, so that's DID. So what's, should we do narcissism? Or we'll do narcissism first, because I think Leticia has got narcissistic personality disorder with some features of borderline. But these two disorders, narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, are related anyway. In the DSM-5, they come under the same cluster. They come under, I think it's cluster B, but it's basically unstable personality constructs, unstable or emotionally volatile. And it's not like a mood, right? Personality disorders are not mood disorders. Mood disorders are different. So a lot of people will get diagnosed with a mood disorder such as depression, or more commonly bipolar, when actually they've got a personality disorder. And again, it's down to psychological diagnosing being very difficult, because a lot of these disorders have very similar symptoms, and it can take a long time to get diagnosed with the disorder that more accurately fits your symptoms. And does it really matter? You know, aren't all of these labels? Yes, they are labels. However, it's important to be diagnosed with the correct label, because then you can get the best possible treatment. Mental health treatment in the UK is absolutely dreadful, really bad. Like on the NHS, it's really bad, because it's not that the treatment's bad, it's just the waiting for treatment is really bad. I don't know what it's like where you are, but the waiting list for even for basic counselling are really, really bad in the UK. So there's so many people who have mental health disorders in the UK who can't get treatment. So, you know, but if you have a good doctor and you get on the right treatment, then you can live a very fulfilled life. But you have to have the correct treatment for the disorder that you have. So that's why diagnosing you with the right disorder is important. Putting someone with borderline personality disorder on antipsychotics is a really bad idea. Really bad idea. Putting them on a bipolar medicine isn't going to help them, because they've not got a mood disorder or a psychotic disorder. They've got a personality disorder. And a personality disorder is about you, about your personality. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you can't improve and that there aren't treatments, but the treatments are mainly talking therapies or coping therapies. Now, if you've got comorbid anxiety, depression, etc., then yes, they can be helped with medicines. But a personality disorder is something that you are not necessarily that you're born with. It's a very delicate interaction between you and your temperament, which is genetic, and then environmental. So people with personality disorders, again, childhood trauma features high in the histories of people with personality disorders. But it's not. But personality disorders are not trauma disorders. So there's less people who have diagnosed personality disorders who have been traumatized as children, but it is a risk factor for developing a personality disorder. Okay, so this is narcissistic personality disorder. So what I want you to do is think about Leticia while I'm reading through this list. How many of these symptoms does Leticia display? If you've been watching the trial, right, how many of these does she display? And I'm going to tell you that I think she's got most of them. Right. So, have an unreasonably high sense of self-importance and require constant, excessive admiration. Feel that they deserve privilege and special treatment. So, you know, she demanded a kosher diet, didn't she? She's not Jewish. Why did she demand a kosher diet? Why did she need that particular privilege? Expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements. Make achievements and talents seem bigger than they are. Preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. Believe they're superior to others and can only spend time with or be understood by equally special people. Now, wasn't it said in court, I don't know whether it was yesterday or the day before, that Leticia only wanted to speak to doctors who had a high, you know, they were high in academia. They got, you know, a doctoral qualification. She didn't want to speak to social workers. She didn't want to speak to lowly people or just the, you know, the people in the jail. She wanted to speak to the best of the best because she can feel special. She's seeing the best of the best because she's the best of the best. Be critical of and look down on people they feel are not important. Expect special favors and expect other people to do what they want without questioning them. Now, didn't she get really mad? Didn't she get really mad to the point of attacking a police officer? Did you see that body cam footage where what she wanted the air on, and a police officer was allegedly ignoring her, and she would only speak to one person. She wouldn't speak to the others. She did it when she was interviewed. Do you remember that interview that she had when she claimed that she'd been raped by Eduardo? She didn't want to speak to the guy who came along, the guy officer. She only wanted to speak to one person. She wanted special treatment. She wanted the door open. These are all little things, but these are all indicative. And as I was watching the trial and seeing this unfolding, I was going through the narcissistic personality disorder definition in my head and thinking, yep, yep, yep. Each one of those things on its own doesn't seem much. But when you put it all together, this is what Leticia actually has. Take advantage of others to get what they want. Have an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. So this can be lack of empathy, but it's a little bit more than that. Because even if you have an ability to feel empathy, you're going to disregard it anyway because you come first. You don't need to recognize the feelings of others because they're not important to you. Your needs are important. You come first. Yeah, she grabbed a Monster drink and hit a police officer over the head with it. Michelle, were you surprised to hear they're settled on BPD with narcissistic features? No, because there's a lot of overlap between the two. I would say that she's narcissistic with borderline features. But you can actually be diagnosed with what they call a mixed personality disorder. That if you measure high on 2 or more, then you won't get the label of just one. You'll get mixed, that you've got several. So I would probably say she's mixed. She's got a mixed personality disorder. But I definitely think narcissism is really high. And I think when she acts out, what she's acting out because of is because of the narcissism. But I think the way she spoke to Al showed signs of narcissism, but also really, really high on BPD, like the BPD really came through. So I think probably in her everyday life, she's very borderline, but when she's confronted or when she has a choice to make or when she's told that she's got to do something, then this narcissism really comes to the front, and it's the narcissism that's dangerous. Because if you contradict a narcissistic person, then they're going to act with anger. The gaslighting is very narcissistic. BPD, you're not going to be reacting in anger and gaslighting people with the level of extremeness that someone who's got narcissism will. Take advantage of others to get what they want. Have an inability or unwillingness to recognize. Oh, I've read that. Be envious of others and believe others envy them. So behave in an arrogant way, brag a lot, and come across as conceited. Insist on having the best of everything, for instance, the best car or office. I'd be interested in knowing what her spending was like. Like, did she rack up lots and lots of debt because she was living, she wanted the best of everything, and she was living far beyond her means? Because a lot of people who've got narcissism end up with a massive amount of debt for that very reason. That they have to have the best of everything. They're very materialistic. Not everybody with NPD is materialistic, but those that are, they have to have the best of everything, even if it means that they put themselves in massive amounts of debt, because it's all for them. So at the same time, people with narcissistic personality disorder have trouble handling anything they view as criticism. And what they view as criticism doesn't necessarily mean it's critical. It's just something that they perceive as criticism. And this is where it gets dangerous. They become impatient or angry when they don't receive special recognition or treatment, have major problems interacting with others, and easily feel slighted, react with rage or contempt and try to belittle other people to make themselves appear superior, have difficulty managing their emotions and behavior. And this is the narcissism it's the narcissism that we're seeing time and time again with her. Experience major problems dealing with stress and adapting to change, withdraw from or avoid situations in which they might fail, feel depressed or moody because they fall short of perfection, have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, humiliation, fear of being exposed as a failure. Now, because narcissistic personality disorder is an emotionally unstable personality, what's underlying it all actually is insecurity. So when Mr. Tillington was talking about attachment theory, I loved it. I loved his little psychology lesson he gave the court about attachment theory, because he was trying to use Leticia having a bad childhood and an insecure attachment to her caregivers as a child as a rationale for DID. What he was actually explaining was a rationale for a personality disorder, much more fittingly than a rationale for DID. Personality disorders are common. The diagnosis isn't necessarily common, because there's a lot of narcissistic people out there who would fulfill the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. They're just not diagnosed. However, insecure attachments as a child, and it doesn't have to necessarily be abusive. It can be just not having it can be neglect. It could be just not having the level of care and support that is perhaps optimal, right? But it is an interaction between the temperament that you're born with and the environment that you that you are brought up in. But people who have had insecurity as a child, even if it's not massively neglectful, can develop narcissism if they've got that kind of temperament anyway. So if she did have insecure attachments as a child, then that can be the underlying reason why she's developed narcissistic personality disorder. Now, obviously, this is just in my opinion. Nature versus nurture. Yeah. I mean, with all behavior, it is an interplay between nature and nurture. All behavior. We have a temperament that we're born with, and then how that develops into our personality is determined by our environment. Yeah, Ainsworth and Bowlby, you're absolutely right. Where I used to work, I mean, I'm going back many years, but we had a child development lab, and once a year we used to advertise for babies. Babies between the age of 12 and 24 months. And we used to run the strange situation for the first year students. And we used to do it twice a day for 2 weeks. So we had 2 babies a day for 2 weeks to do Ainsworth's strange situation. 2 of my kids did it when they were babies. But anyway, that's narcissistic personality disorder. So should we do borderline now? Let's do borderline. All right. So again, think about Leticia, and I think probably the symptoms of borderline fit Leticia to a T. Fit T to a T. But I think more of what we've seen throughout the trial, I attribute to narcissistic rather than borderline features. But in her everyday life, she might be more borderline. Like if I actually spent time with her, I might think, yeah, you're BPD with narcissistic features rather than narcissistic with borderline features. But she'll probably measure high on both. And probably a mixed diagnosis would be the most appropriate for her. What do you think about the theory that BPD is covert narcissism? Oh, I'm going to come on to that. You've preempted me. You've preempted me. Okay, so these are the symptoms of BPD. Now, it says may include. Now, with all of these, you don't have to have all of this, right? You can just have some of it, because every psychological disorder is on a continuum anyway. So, you know, some people might only have 5 of these, and some people might have all of them and be at the really extreme end. Excuse me. Right. So an intense fear of abandonment. That's the main feature of BPD. That it's basically a fear of abandonment disorder, that you're so emotionally volatile and insecure. And again, it's all about childhood insecurity, or anxiety. Like if you're a very anxious child, even if you've had a really good childhood, if you're a really anxious child and you feared abandonment, and you've got that kind of temperament where you're just not very confident, then that's a risk factor for developing BPD. So an intense fear of abandonment, even going to extreme measures to avoid real or imagined separation or rejection. So even going to extreme measures to avoid real or imagined separation. Well, Al had just left. Would setting the house on fire with an 11-year-old boy inside, do you think that would be something that you might do if you were really angry with that person and you have a personality disorder? I wonder. A pattern of unstable, intense relationships, such as idealizing someone 1 minute and then suddenly believing that person doesn't care enough or is cruel. Rapid changes in self-identity or self-image that include shifting goals and values, seeing yourself as bad, or even that you don't exist at all. You see, for me, that doesn't fit Leticia as well as narcissism. That I don't think she sees herself as bad. I think she sees herself as the best of the best of the best, and she deserves the best of the best of the best. I think, yes, a fear of abandonment and this imagined unstable relationship, even if it wasn't, I can see that. But I don't think she sees herself as bad. I think she sees herself as wonderful and then can't cope when people don't live up to her expectations. That's why I prefer narcissism to explain most of her behaviours than BPD. Periods of stress-related paranoia or loss of contact with reality. So if she'd got herself into such a stressed state, totally paranoid, could she have committed a murder whilst in that state? Yeah, probably. Because she was in a narcissistic rage at the same time, in my opinion. And that can last for a few minutes to a few hours. Now, if the defense had come along and said she had a psychotic break, I could have bought that. She had a psychotic break because she has extreme forms of narcissistic and borderline personalities, and she had a psychotic break. I could have bought that. What I can't buy is that happening because of DID. So, as I said before the trial even started, why she's chosen DID as this insane, I'm insane because I've got DID. It's nothing could be further from the truth. She should have gone with psychosis, and why she didn't, I've no idea. Because that can create a temporary form of insanity that feels more akin to the legal definition of insanity. I don't think it was that with her. I think she knew full well what she was doing. The reason why I believe she knew full well what she was doing was because she was able to function very well in the day. She was able to clean up immediately after the murder. It wasn't like she'd had a psychotic break and then woken up and thought, oh my God, right? That's not how the day played out. Not at all. So even if she had a psychotic break just for a few minutes, well, what explains the rest of it then? It doesn't. That's why she wasn't insane when she murdered Gannon. Impulsive and risky behavior, such as gambling, reckless driving, unsafe sex, spending sprees, binge eating, drug abuse, there's a whole range of things. Sabotaging success by suddenly quitting a good job or ending a positive relationship. Now, again, we could say that, Leticia would quit jobs and she would, she'd argue with people, and maybe that's borderline. No, I don't think so. I think she quit jobs because she felt she was too good for them. Not because she was sabotaging. I think it was because people at those jobs weren't living up to her expectations or treating her well enough. Dr. Stauch expected the best of the best. She did, Anita. She knew exactly what she was doing. Exactly what she was doing. Suicidal threats or behaviour or self-injury, often in response to fear of separation or rejection. Now, apparently she's attempted suicide before. People with BPD actually most probably don't want to die. It's to get a reaction. And it's not necessarily a conscious thing that they're doing it for. Wide mood swings lasting from a few hours to a few days, which can include intense happiness, irritability, shame, or anxiety. And again, I don't see shame with her. These are the reasons why people often get diagnosed with bipolar when actually they've got BPD, because of the mood swings. But personality disorders are not mood disorders. So they don't respond in the same way to bipolar medicines or antidepressants. Ongoing feelings of emptiness. I don't know that I don't know that I see that in Leticia. I see a sense of superiority in Leticia. But again, I'm only seeing I'm only thinking about what I've seen in the trial. Right? If I knew her, maybe I would see shame. But we've not seen remorse. We've not seen any shame for the murder she's committed at all. Bipolar is very treatable, yeah. BPD isn't treatable with mood stabilizers or antidepressants or antipsychotics. Now, if you've got comorbid depression, like, it's quite possible to have BPD and bipolar. It's possible to have a mood disorder and a personality disorder. So treating the mood disorder is possible, get you on the right medication, but it still leaves you with the personality issues. Now, they are treatable, but you've really got to work at it. There's a therapy called dialectic behavior therapy that was developed by a therapist who has BPD specifically for treating people with BPD, and it's basically teaching you how to cope with your emotions and your emotional volatility. But dialectic behavior therapy won't work with bipolar because you can't control your mania or your depression. Whereas the emotions that you're feeling in bipolar disorder, you can moderate them if you learn how to. You learn the strategies. But you've really got to work on it. Really got to work at it. Dialectic behavior therapy developed from cognitive therapy, but it's not the same. Like cognitive therapy, cognitive behavior therapy is about developing strategies to cope with your thoughts and your feelings, whereas like the cognitive is the thought, and then putting behaviors in place that will help you deal with the thoughts you're having. And then that in turn helps you calm down and deal with the emotion. Whereas dialectic behavior therapy directly helps you strategize about your emotions. It's not about thought processes. It's about the emotional volatility that you're feeling. And then inappropriate intense anger, such as frequently losing your temper, being sarcastic or bitter, or having physical fights. Now, I could see that. But yeah, I see narcissism stronger than BPD. But I'm not saying that the Dr. Torres was wrong at all by saying BPD with narcissistic features, because I haven't sat with Leticia for hours and talked to her, and I'm only looking at what I see in that trial and what I know about the murder of Gannon Stauch. I see narcissism, but if I spoke to her, talked to her, assessed her, maybe I'd see more BPD. But anyway, but what I don't see, what I absolutely do not see, is DID. And what I 120 million% do not see is legal insanity. At all. At all. So, if you can bear it, let's play a little bit of Leticia. Because this is, I shouldn't laugh. I mean, it's dreadful. But I like the title that Law and Crime Network put on this clip. So I'm playing this from Law and Crime Network. I'll put this in the chat. So it's a 9-minute clip. It includes Leticia saying that, oh dear, saying that devils taught to her, and child killers should be wiped off the face of the earth, which is probably the most sensible thing she's ever said. So, Leticia, prepare to be wiped off the face of the earth. I would like that very much. But this creating the worlds, that was the thing that got me. I was laughing my head off when she said that. Oh dear. Right, we're going to play it. It's not dead clear. I'll put the closed captions on, but the closed captions are not great. And then Dr. Torres speaks briefly at the end. All right, so I shall see you in 9 minutes. If you can bear this, I'll see you in 9 minutes. Right, I'm going to mute out now.
The next clip.
Minutes ago, you said you hear voices, that they're all your personality.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, and the devil. But you know, there's always a devil. The devil was probably trying to tell you to do something. Like when I was on the high school junior 26, the devil was telling me to jump off the height because it had to be a white man to jump off the height. That's the devil. That's like cosmic powers trying to like come in and intervene. That's going to be with all of us. You know what I'm saying? The closer you are to God, the devil's going to come get you all the time. You know what I mean? But as far as like, you know, I don't believe in this whole thing that people say, and no disrespect to y'all, even jobs, but for me, I don't believe in this whole thing where people say, oh, these people are talking to them. These are your cosmic powers and your personalities. Like, all my personalities are going to talk to me and be like, why don't you just slap that girl? Like those type of things. But I don't grow up this these people beyond this whole best thing and they be doing that stuff. Like, none of that. But there's always the devil that has you to do that. I mean, like running a G-Ball in the form of chance for you to run a G-Ball. You know what I mean? But I don't believe in the other stuff. So, you know.
So you don't believe in which other stuff?
Right. I be seeing people come in and they be on meds and they be swearing up and down, like, you know, like, oh, these people were telling them to do this. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? It's only gonna be the devil. Like, the devil told me to jump off a hot different. It ain't gonna be just random people sitting out somewhere telling you this. Like, this ain't how it works. You know what I mean? Yes, does my different personalities tell me to do different things? Yes, but that's still a part of me, just in a separate world. That's not, you know, I don't know. I just feel like they be just a little bit like that. I believe in, if anybody's saying anything wrong, that's the devil or that's yourself. I mean, even if you got 5 cells, it's them. It ain't, if you, that's people not on drugs like me, no. People that be on meth and all that. I be seeing them coming there and they be swearing up and down, you know, the most craziest stuff is going on. Like, I don't believe in that. I feel like it's the devil. Not, you know, have I? Yes. I've been in forms of psychosis in my life where I saw them. Or maybe you can call them delusion. But on a regular basis, no. Like if I'm in a different world, like if I go to a world like a Janelle's world, I see everything Janelle sees. But that's because I've created those worlds. I've been able to be like, I know what Janelle does. Or if I go to Christina Browning and I'm doing gymnastic stuff around cell, like I know that I can make a balance beam, or, you know, I put apparatus out, or whatever. But I know those are things that I leave this place to go to that place, so I put them. You see what I'm saying? It's not something that, you know, there's, you know, oh, that looks like the sun is in here. Like, no, it's not like that. I actually created those worlds. I know what goes in there. I put it there, you know what I mean?
Sounds like it's almost a conscious choice on your part.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Except Maria. Now, I don't have a choice in that part, because I can't control going to Maria.
This is a transformative pause. However, I'm sitting here laughing my socks off. Because I believe that the male voice that you hear in the male doctor is Dr. Gray. So there's Dr. Gray and Dr. Torres. And they were doing her insanity test. Right. So when Dr. Gray said, so it almost sounds like you're doing this consciously. She went, yeah, pretty much. Which completely negates her saying that she's got DID, because DID is not a conscious choice. What she's talking about is imagining a world where she can create balance beams to do gymnastics on. This is fantasy. She's talking about having fantasies, about having a world where she can go and do gymnastics. You can go to Janelle's world or whatever she was saying. She should be stuffed in a suitcase. I would love that. I would love that. I'll fly to Colorado and do that myself at my own expense. I'll go and throw her in the biggest, deepest river I can find in Colorado. I don't know what the biggest, deepest river in Colorado is, but I'll go and throw her in there. She's nuts, yeah, but that's not legally insane. She's not legally insane. Her saying that she goes to different worlds, i.e. has an active imagination, is not DID. And DID is not legal insanity. So there you go. Anyway, let's carry on. She, yeah, dear me. All right, I'm muting out again now.
That I can switch back and forth, but I cannot switch to Maria without it being triggered. Like you'd have to put me like under some like drug-induced setting or something to trigger to get Maria. I can't forcefully switch her, but everyone else I can because it's a conscious way of doing it. Like every time I go to court, I tell Miss Robinson, the lady out here, she goes to me to court. I'll be like, bye-bye, Miss Robinson. I'm leaving. She's like, don't leave yet. And I just go to a whole other world. Like sometimes I'll be calling my name. She'll have to like snap me out of it. And I'll just be in a whole different thing doing all different stuff. But I've created that as a way to deal with things in life.
So she's right. What she's done is she's read something on the internet about DID. And she's seen that DID is an adaptive mechanism to cope with severe trauma. What she's failed to understand is that you don't just snap in and snap out of your personalities. Now, if you're in court and you're bored and you go off into a little fantasy world where you can create balance beams and then you can snap back out of it, yeah, that's a minor level of dissociation akin to daydreaming, but it's not DID. It's not having an alternate personality because you're playing balance beams with Janelle or whoever. Now, what she has said, though, is that she can't control Maria. Now, Maria's the interesting one. Maria's the sniper who trained in Russia. She's from Mexico, but she trained in Russia. Now, I was a bit confused about Maria at first because I wasn't sure whether Maria was Mexican with a Spanish accent and there was another Maria who was a Russian sniper. But listening to it a couple more times, I realized that Maria is Mexican. She speaks with a Spanish accent because she's Mexican, but she trained as a sniper in Russia. Right, so that's Maria. Now, she said, this is what I took from this conversation. She said that when she was in the police car and she attacked that police officer with a can of Monster, that she was Maria, that she'd snapped into Maria, and it was Maria that was doing this. So much so that the prosecutor had Dr. Torres listen to the conversation with her in the police car after she'd attacked that officer with a can of Monster. And Maria has a Spanish accent. Was Leticia speaking in a Spanish accent when she was in that police car? No, she wasn't. So that was just a lie. I thought she said Russian call girl. Well, she might be that as well. She might be a Russian call girl who trained as a sniper, who's actually Mexican with a Spanish accent. But it was nonsense. She wasn't. She was just aggressive in the police car because she wanted to escape. Anyway, I'll let this play through now. It's hilarious, this bit about Maria. Hilarious. All right, muting out.
It's not something that, that is like a chemical imbalance or something, I don't think. I think it's just but then Maria, though, she's a trained sniper now, so she can do the most.
Where did she get training to do?
So Maria does for hire. She got trained from Russia. She does for hire, but she's from Mexico. She got trained for hire. She does $1,500 per minute. She does different things. That includes everything. Like, so you see her come out, she's talking about eliminate this person, eliminate that person, but there's only certain people. It's pedophiles, people that like sexually molest people, people that rape people, like those that need to be eliminated from the planet. people, you know, you can say, well, you're a Christian, you're supposed to not say that, but Maria's not Christian, so she don't say that. Those are people that just need to be completely wiped off the face of the planet. Because if you're going to sit there and hurt a child and pedophile and lesbian and all that, then you need to be breathing.
So we stopped it at 133.24. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yes, there is.
Let's start with her conversations about the devil and the devil telling her to do things. Okay. What's your take on that?
Our take on that is ultimately, it seemed like an exaggerated symptom, that one specifically. She talked about auditory hallucinations, hearing personality states, again, in dissociative identity disorder. The research related to clinical presentation says that's possible. Hearing the devil wouldn't be associated with a dissociative identity disorder. Hearing the devil could be associated with a psychosis. But again, given Ms. Stauch's history, there's nothing there to corroborate that she's had any significant psychosis that persist, that one might hear that symptom and say that symptom goes with this particular clinical presentation. What was also striking was, at least as it pertains to issues of psychosis, is that individuals who do have a psychotic disorder specifically are usually hesitant to draw attention to their symptoms. They can be difficult to assess because they might deny symptoms, or they might just withhold information as it pertains to those. So the fact that Ms. Stauch just very openly told us about this hallucination, hearing the devil and hearing the devil at different moments of her life, it's just not a particularly credible symptom in the way that she presented it.
The way she presented it was in reference to the hike that took place on January 26th. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And so, for the sake of argument, if in fact the devil was communicating with her, did she have ability to say, no, I'm not going to jump off a cliff? In other words, she didn't listen to the devil.
Yeah, that's important.
Why is that important?
When it comes to issues of psychosis, people sometimes hear hallucinations that command them or tell them they should behave in a particular manner. Some individuals with psychosis have difficulty controlling their behavior in light of that, and some people can control their behavior in light of that. It kind of depends how sick.
Yeah. She should. You're absolutely right, Helen. You're absolutely right. She should be made to sit up and listen. Yeah. But I believe that the narcissism is the reason why she thinks that she can basically fool everybody into believing that she should be not guilty by reason of insanity. That she's so clever that she's fooled all of these doctors, and that she's going to be able to go to a mental hospital, have a really comfy time. Now, mental hospitals are not comfy in any way, shape or form, but she thinks she'll be able to go there for a year or a couple of years and then be hey presto sane again and just get released. She thinks she is that clever that she can win. And I think that's one of the reasons why at some point through this 3-year journey to get her to court, she thought she could claim that she was too incompetent to stand trial, which didn't work. She thought she could defend herself, and then she ended up with she ended up with an attorney team anyway. But she's deluded, but not in a way that is psychotic, and certainly not in a way that creates no guilt because you were insane at the time that you murdered your 11-year-old stepson. So that's where I am with this trial so far. Down Under with Love, member for 7 months. Slappable face. She has one. Absolutely. There was another member comment earlier on. Kelly. I think that's this Kelly. Member for 6 months. I agree. She's not insane. They don't. These member questions or member comments, they don't show up on StreamYard. StreamYard need to fix that. They need to fix that. Do I think she'll testify? I hope she does. I think her attorneys won't want her to. Her attorneys, I think, will very, very strongly try to dissuade her. But you know what? It's her choice, and she might well think that she can fool everyone. So she might. I'm 70-30 in favour that she'll testify at the moment. If she's got any common sense whatsoever, she won't. But I think she might just be that narcissistic enough to think that that can win. But Alex Murdoch thought that as well. And look how badly that went for him. When will this trial be finished? The prosecution are gonna probably rest their case on Monday. They were working for Friday, tomorrow, but they've not finished with Dr. Torres yet, and then I think they've got someone else. So I think they plan to finish on Monday. Then the defense, now they don't have a lot of witnesses, but Dr. Lewis is probably going to take a while. And then there'll be the rebuttal. So I think they're working at the end of next week for the jury to start deliberating. But I don't know how. It will completely depend on how each of the witnesses that have got left are going to take. So I'd imagine end of next week at probably the earliest for the jury to retire to deliberate. So, but I don't know. So wait and see. I'm going to try to pick out some questions, but she'll dig herself into a bigger hole. She absolutely will. She absolutely will. I'm inclined. I'm 70-30 at the moment. She thinks she can fool the jury. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Sarah Boone's another one who's very narcissistic. Oh, that's a good point. What the prosecutors should do like when they cross-examine her, they should say, okay, so you say that you can bring forward these personalities apart from Maria. Let's speak to your other personalities. Let's see what she says to that. I would, if I was cross-examining her. That's exactly what I'd say. That's true. If she does testify, that'll be a long one. That will be a long one. Oh dear. No way. Every time you open your mouth, the judge added 20 English pounds to your pocket. Oh. She's absolutely going down. She absolutely is going down. Totally. Good riddance to her as well. All the different personalities might show up. Yeah. I mean, that could easily add another week to the trial, couldn't it? Better on deliberation time. Do you know what? I think it'll be quick. I think they'll return a guilty verdict, and I think they'll do it quite quickly. Could be wrong. I thought Alex Murdoch I thought the jury was going to be like days deliberating, and they were back in what, 3-4 hours? 3 hours. So I was wrong on deliberation time for Alex Murdoch, but in the other way. But they've asked some very good, very intelligent questions, so they might want to deliberate for a long time because they might just want to discuss everything that they've heard. So it might not be, if it's the longer the deliberation time, you kind of think the more problems the jury are having, the more divided the jury are, or the more unsure the jury are. So a quick turnaround tends to be, that they just all agree very quickly that they're guilty. But with her, they might want to sit and chat and it not be because they're unsure. It might be because they just want to decompress and talk to each other. Who knows? Mandy, member for 6 months. Thank you for a great channel. You're very welcome. Very, very welcome. What is his total? £500,000 maybe. Thoughts on Dr. Lewis? Well, I'll reserve my judgment until I've actually seen what she says on that. I think she's made some very controversial statements in the past, but I'll reserve my opinion until I've heard her. Can't wait for sentencing. I know. Me neither. It has moved faster than expected. Yes, it has. But if she gets on the stand, then yeah, it could easily add a week. Yeah. But also, I think it was very narcissistic. Like all of those lies to a man who she allegedly loves and is married to. And she knew Gannon's body was lying in a suitcase. And she was telling all of those lies. That is just such a dreadful lack of empathy or just disregard. Now, that is totally narcissistic. There's nothing BPD about that. But I think she was grasping at straws. So, possibly. I think they'll find her guilty. I really do. I think they'll find her guilty. The not guilty by reason of insanity defense rarely works. Very, very rarely works. Oh, no, I didn't. Hear the case of the 6-year-old found murdered and put in a bucket. No, I didn't. I've not heard that one. I've not heard that one. I've just got round to doing a video on Oakley Snow. I've been following Oakley Snow's case since she was first reported missing. But I haven't done any videos on it because I didn't want to get... I just thought, this is another child that's been murdered. A little 2-year-old child that's been murdered. It's another one. But I did a video on Oakley Snow today. What now the probable cause affidavit's out. So a 6-year-old murdered and put in a bucket. No, I haven't heard that one. Dear me. They just get worse and worse, don't they? That's Dr. Lewis that I just talked about. I'll reserve my judgment until she's actually been on the stand, and then I'll tell you. Yeah, I think it will be a quick deliberation. I do. I bet it's less than 3 hours. We were all wrong with the jury time with Murdoch. I really thought they'd struggle with Murdoch. I really did. To testify, I've been asked many times, but the kind of work that I used to do, I used to get asked to testify on behalf of the defence to get child molesters off, and I would never do it. I don't care how much money I could have charged. I couldn't do it. I've been a jury member, though. An extra week of screeching. Yeah, it is. I hope it does. I sincerely hope it does. Oh, no way. Can you imagine being her cellmate? You'd be pleading. You'd be pleading for a different cellmate, wouldn't you? You'd just wanted to just go to sleep. Who's the last witness? I think they're going to call Dr. Gray, the prosecution. They were talking about Dr. Gray, so I think they're calling him after Dr. Torres. I might be wrong, but I think that's who they're calling next. And I don't know whether they've got any witnesses after that. I don't think they're going to call anyone else. I might be wrong, though. Yeah, I think we all didn't realise that the Murdoch family were really disliked. I thought it'd go the other way. I thought that the jury would be scared to find him guilty because of that kind of small town, you know, the Murdochs are in charge kind of thing. But no, I'm glad they didn't. It's been a very organised case. The prosecution have been very good. Very, very good. Yeah, and the judge is very good as well. He's very keeps them all really calm, and he won't stand any nonsense, will he? Do I think the prosecutor has presented the psychological aspects well enough? Yeah, I do. I mean, we've not seen the end of the psychology yet, so Yeah, I do. I think they've done very well. I mean, I say that as someone who is a psychologist, so probably you need to ask people who don't know anything about psychology, I guess. Yeah, Oakley, it's just awful. Awful. And another one as well who could have had a good life. Like, she was safe with her dad and they took her away from that and murdered her. Why? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you mean Oakley, yeah. The probable cause affidavit came out yesterday. Rowan Waters was charged with murder. And the PCA came out yesterday. So I did a long video earlier on going through the whole thing. That's right. Yeah. Flying into Colorado on Saturday, prosecution said. We'll be in the witness stand on Monday. I think she'll take a while, though. Yeah, I know. I know. There's so many different characters and initials, and yeah, I had to read it a couple of times before I read it. And then I find that reading it aloud to a video helps me digest it. Oh, Dad's girlfriend put her in a bucket, wheeled her to buy her mum's house and put her in the front garden. What? Oh dear. Good. They just get worse and worse and worse. They really do. Yeah, I think part of it was jealousy. I think she hated Landon, and she hated the fact that Gannon loved her more than Leticia. I think she hated the fact that Gannon and Al got on so well. I think she was just jealous and eaten up with rage. And there's no reason. There's no reason. She's just filled with hatred. Yeah, if you're in Colorado, don't commit any crimes. Don't commit any crimes in Colorado, just in case. Just in case. Oh dear. Right, I'm going to sign off in a minute, but I'll pick one more question if I can find one. I'm too far up the chat now. Yeah, good. Dr. Lewis believes that many low brain damage should be locked away for life. Good. Well, I hope that she says that about Leticia, and I hope she says it to the jury. Okay. What do you think of the fact that some of the psych community still don't accept DID as a true disorder? I think it's understandable because it's so rare. There's other disorders that have similar symptoms that are much more well known. And also, there's a lot of faking. There's a lot of people, especially in recent years, that fake it and think it's fun to play with other personalities. And so it's kind of understandable but it is a real disorder. Dissociative disorders are very, very real. They're very, very, can create a lot of dysfunction, and DID is just one dissociative disorders. There are others. DID is the most controversial, but yeah. All right, I'm going to sign off. Give it a thumbs up. Give the stream a thumbs up if you've not done so already. And is that the 6-year-old in the bucket? Just came out a few hours ago. Yeah, it's not a case I've heard of. I'll go and look it up though. Okay. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. All right, I'm sitting here saying I'm gonna go when I'm just gonna go. All right. So thanks for joining me this evening. Let's see what tomorrow brings with the trial. So Dr. Torres will be back on the stand at 9 a.m. Colorado time tomorrow, which is 4 p.m. my time. So I've nearly done my day by the time the trial even starts. So it's midnight by the time it finishes. But yeah, I think the prosecution have done really well. Can't fault the prosecution, to be honest. And the judge is great. But yeah. All right. Thank you for those that donated. Welcome to the new members. And thanks as always to the moderators. I'll see you very soon. Bye, guys.